channel. In this video, I am recapping episode 7 of Lovecraft Country. That was the name of the episode, not me having a stroke. This episode made me feel seen as a person as a Black woman who has been in therapy for several years. I felt so seen by Hippolyta's journey. In this episode, I have been waiting for the Hippolyta focused episode because I felt like there were multitudes within that character, and they kept giving us hints that she was a special and unique person. And I'm happy that we finally got to explore that. So this was the Hippolyta episode, but we have to check in with our other characters first. So, just get it on out the way. Ruby figures out, or Christina rather shows her what is in the basement, and it is 2 corpses and a DIY chemistry set that she used to create this potion, which enables her to switch in and out of her body and William's body. It's the same potion that Ruby used to swap in and out of this white woman's body. And Ruby wants answers. Ruby wants to know, like, girl, you use this to sleep with me. What is all of this for? What is all of this about? I have questions, you have answers. And Christina tells her, initially she used William, who was her boo, as an in to get into this secret society of men, but then she realized that if she had access to this magic, she could be so much more than just the son that her father hoped for. She wants to do so much more with this power, and she tells Ruby that a part of what she needs is to find these missing pages, and she tells Ruby that it involves her family. I really don't like that this narrative about this magic is going to come from Christina. I don't trust her. I don't exactly fully understand how Ruby's family has so much to do with this situation as opposed to Tick's family. I guess by Letty being a part of it, or did Christina have some sort of dealings with their mom? Like, why did she say that Ruby's family is involved in this? Drop down in the comments, let me know what you guys thought that was. Is this a manipulation tactic, or is Letty and Ruby's family actually in some way intertwined in this whole situation? Because we do have to consider the way in which Christina was able to get this money to Letty for the house without her knowing that it was from her and that it was actually from her mom. So I am curious about that, and I'm really not happy that this narrative is going to be orchestrated by Christina, because I still don't trust the hoe. I don't trust white feminism. So remains to be seen. And I don't want her to capitalize off of Ruby and Letty's very strained relationship, because Ruby already doesn't trust Letty. So if you come in and give her even more reason why she can't or why she shouldn't, I think that's just going to be a whole thing. Not happy about that. Speaking of Letty, so Letty dreams about Hannah much in the same way that Tick does. And in her dream, Hannah reveals to her that she's pregnant, and then she bursts into flame. I can't figure out if Hannah is warning them or instructing them. And so Letty is preggo. She's not telling Tick at this juncture, which fair, not gonna judge you, girl. And they both discover, Tick and Letty, in discovering that they share the same dream, realize that Hannah runs out of the house holding the book of names. And while Christina is looking for a few pages, they want to find the whole book. And this means that there is magic and this book in Tick's family. So maybe someone on his mom's side still has access to this book, so they decide to go see Montrose to find out, like, who can we talk to from, you know, my mom's side or some connection to his mom's side of the family to find out where this book ended up. Well, they pop up on Montrose at not a great time. And I have to say, Montrose reminds me of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brene Brown. She's kind of like White Oprah. I really enjoy her. She talks about like shame and joy and the relationship between like shame and confidence. It's all this really interesting stuff. If you have the chance, watch her show, documentary, movie. I'm not sure what you would call it, but it's on Netflix. I'll put a link to it in the episode description. But she talks about this thing where almost the instant that we feel joy, we automatically envision it being taken away. So we kind of struggle to be present in feelings of joy. And I think that's what Montrose keeps feeling over and over again. You know, he and Sammy have spent the night together. It looks like they have, you know, reached another level of intimacy in this relationship. But upon learning that Sammy may have run into Montrose's neighbor, meaning that they may be caught, his whole mood changes. He's criticizing how Sammy made the breakfast and you know, like Sammy isn't doing anything right. And I appreciate Sammy for establishing this boundary where he's like, bitch, this ain't even about me. You are having your own issue right now and I'm not gonna stay for it. And, you know, he leaves, and just as he's leaving and Montrose wants to get him to stay, of course, this is when Tick and Letty walk up. And I had to brace myself for the homophobia because, yes, this is a sci-fi show. Yes, this is horror. But this is also somewhat of a period piece. And as much as we would want for Tick, who is one of our heroes, as much as we would want him to be progressive and welcoming of, you know, discovering his father's sexuality, the homophobia jumped out. And that was so the same, I think, level of anxiety or fear that I had at seeing like those fantastical monsters or ghosts that were in the house back in the previous episode, I had at how is Tick about to react to this, and having him call him the F word, and you know, and Montrose just flying into rage because Montrose doesn't know any other expression, I think, towards Tick other than rage. And it just does not go well. Everything goes south, and it's like, you know, why would you come here? And it's just like, damn, bro. But, you know, and Tick also has to realize, like, you were abusing me because you didn't want me to be soft, and the whole time you're gay. So he's having, and then he also finds out that his mom knew. Bombs are being dropped. But Letty, you know, eyes on the prize. Letty is like, okay, we did come here to find out some information. So they find out that Tick has a cousin who lives in St. Louis, or who lived in St. Louis. And this cousin lived with a woman named Birdie. I loved Birdie. Birdie was such a good black auntie, gave you some good food and just gave you a dollop of extra mac and cheese. And I was just like, come on, Birdie. And what a good black name, Birdie. Name of the time. I love it. I don't know if Tick caught on to, we found his cousin, her name was Ethel. Birdie and Ethel were lovers after their husbands died. You know, Ethel was like, child, ain't nothing else for us to do. We may as well just be together. So I don't know if Tick caught that, but they did, and I caught it, but they did confirm it in the Lovecraft Country radio podcast. And I was like, okay, I thought that's what she was getting at. So Birdie, you know, Tick wants to know, like, did you ever hear anything about a book of names, or, you know, and Birdie tells him, like, everything. I was, you know, familiar with like a photo album or a family book or something like that, but everything got burned up in the riots, you know, and there's this devastation over what the magnitude of what these white people took away from the people of Tulsa, taking away so much family history. And besides lives, you cut off entire legacies, entire family histories that people cannot recover. And so Birdie brings Tick a photo album where he sees a picture of Ethel and sees that Ethel has on her arm the same birthmark that he has on his back. And just at this moment, Birdie gets a phone call from Letty that Hippolyta actually has the orrery, figured out how to open it, and is on her way to this observatory. And as she's doing this, Ruby overhears her, which freaks me out, because even though Ruby and Letty had the, Letty apologizes to Ruby and you feel like maybe this relationship is going into a better place, when Ruby overheard the conversation that Letty was having with Tick, it was like, is this going to hurt or help our people? Is, she gonna run and tell Christina, like, girl, they on the way to find some shit? What's gonna happen here? That freaked me out. So now we get to talk about our good sis Hippolyta. So Hippolyta, in the very beginning of this episode, is doing her damnedest to use all kind of, child, I don't do numbers and physics and science-y things. I'm a words bitch, so I don't know what she was doing, all kind of mathematics, trying to figure out how to activate this orrery. And I think even from the beginning, we've gotten these hints that Hippolyta is brilliant. And I was wondering, at the beginning of this episode, she has this talent for astrology, for math, for science, for curiosity, all of these things. What was she doing with them besides being a devoted wife and mother? That was my immediate thought at the beginning of this episode, and that's what we end up exploring. What they said on the podcast is that this was supposed to be kind of a metaphor for therapy. And I can 100% see that, because all therapy is, not all therapy is, I don't want to oversimplify the process of therapy, but it's really just, again, oversimplification. Part of it, I'll say that, part of therapy is rediscovering who you were before society, family, life experiences told you that you could not be that. Who are you actually? And I think that's what I enjoyed so much about Hippolyta being posed with the opportunity to name herself. If you were free of all of the restrictions that the world puts on everybody, if you didn't have those restrictions, if you didn't, if money was an option, if time and space weren't an option, who, what, and where would you choose to be? And I don't think that's something that most of us consider, because we have just accepted our lives as they are and not what they could be. And I really enjoyed the way that they explored that in this episode, even though it was, albeit fantastical, it was really beautifully done. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Hippolyta figures out how to open the orrery. She discovers that there's a key. She uses these coordinates to figure out, that she should go to this observatory kind of situation, and basically discovers a multiverse machine. And while at this multiverse machine that she has figured out how to activate, these two cops come in. And I heard one of the cops refer to Lancaster, and I'm wondering if it was is that the captain that we know of who has been trying to thwart Christina's plans? She gets caught, and then in comes Tick to save the day, but this machine has already been activated. It opens up this portal that she and Tick get sucked into after she shoots this police officer. So in this portal, she ends up in this white room, and in comes the baddest bitch I've ever seen. On the podcast, they keep referring to her as Beyonce, which I think is really cool. She looks a lot like the character Garnet from Steven Universe, which I still haven't fully gotten into, but it was just, I thought that what a powerful looking character who referred to herself as I am. Like, I contain multitudes. I am whatever you say I am. I am whatever I say I am. Like, and that she was a black woman with this big, beautiful fro and this futuristic outfit that made me think a lot about Missy in the Sock It To Me video. I probably watched that video more than I should, given it's 2020, but I just enjoy the song. Anyway, God, I love that character. She just looks so powerful, and she keeps telling Hippolyta, you are not in a prison. Who are you? And so, posed with this choice, Hippolyta first chooses what I consider to be liberation. And she goes to Paris. In this multiverse, she goes to Paris, and she's on stage with Josephine Baker, who was an expat. And that was, Paris was a form of escape for Black creatives like James Baldwin and like Josephine Baker, where they felt that they could be more free in this other country. And I think we see a lot of movies of white women just picking up and going somewhere so that they can find themselves. We don't really see that a lot with Black women, because we are in service to so many people outside of ourselves. You can't just be picking up and leaving and going to do an eat, pray, love situation. Girl, you got kids, you got responsibilities, you got a job, you know, you might have a man or a woman, you know, I don't know your life, however you identify. But I loved, number one, I love the costumes, but I love what Josephine Baker represented to her, because here was a Black woman who danced on stage naked, who, you know, smoked, she had short hair, she, you know, was just a bad bitch of the times. And I like how realistic it was that this is where she chose to go, but she didn't immediately know how to be there. Just because you decide that you want to be a thing or you want to do a thing doesn't mean that you automatically know how to exist in that world. You know, I decided that I wanted to move to New York, but I didn't really know New York. I didn't quite know how to find my way around here. New York was my escape. New York is where I found my liberation and where I found myself, but it still took time for me to get my footing and to find how I want to be here. And so Hippolyta has this conversation with Josephine Baker where she realizes that she actually has a lot of rage and a lot of anger. And I think that that anger comes at realizing how much she has not been able to delve into these parts of herself. And she says that the world just figured out how to lynch her in a different way. And I think that that's what it means to shrink yourself. It is a kind of death. It is a kind of, you kill a part of yourself when you shrink yourself in order to make other people feel comfortable, or when you help other people to fulfill their dreams in spite of yours. That's what that is. It is kind of a death. And so feeding into that rage, she deems herself to be Hippolyta, and she goes to, I want to make sure that I get the name of these warriors correctly, the Dahomey warriors, who were real African warriors. It's who the Dora Milaje from Black Panther were based on. And she has to learn how to be a warrior. And I love the actress who played the woman who was training her. She played Sue on Veep, and she was so funny. And I just haven't seen her in anything besides Veep, so I was really happy to see her in this role where she wasn't in service to you know, white people. Watch Veep if you haven't. Good laughs. And I love the speech that she gives to the warriors after they fight the Confederate soldiers, where, you know, she talks about who they know who we could be if we were free, and that's what their fear is. And I really enjoyed just seeing her kick ass and seeing her express that rage. And I think being Black, being a woman, being Christian, we're not allowed to feel rage. We're not allowed to feel really any of the negative emotions. You're just supposed to, I don't know what they want you to do. Like, it's kind of unrealistic, but you aren't allowed to hate people. And that's a very real and human feeling. And for the longest time, I honestly would feel bad for disliking or having negative feelings towards people who hurt me. And so for her to say that, I felt really seen. Like, women aren't allowed to be angry. Least of all Black women. We're not allowed to be angry because you don't want to be labeled an angry Black woman, to which I say, sometimes I am. Like, okay, I am. I'm pissed off. I should be allowed to be mad. And when women are justifiably angry, we get labeled as like erratic or overly emotional and all of this stuff. But meanwhile, dudes don't get a text back and go and like shoot places up because they feel entitled to women's bodies. So it's like, who really is out of control of their emotions here, sweetie? Questions. Explore those. So I really enjoyed that exploration. And then she declares herself to be Hippolyta, George's wife. And my first thought was, oh my God, how beautiful that of all the places that you could go and all the things that you could do, you want to be with your deceased husband. And she gets with George and starts explaining to him what her journey has been. And George is like, okay, well, bitch, am I real? Is this real? What? And she tells George something that I have experienced and that I see other people experience, not just women, but I have seen people shrink to accommodate their relationship, to make life easier for their partner. And it's like that person actually contains multitudes and talents that they don't really get to explore because they feel that they have to be in service to other people. And every now and again, that video of Nikki Giovanni talking with James Baldwin resurfaces, and she talks about how, you know, black men will get beat down all day by white men and still have to smile in their faces and then come home to their wives and their wives get the worst part of them. That's a part of what that whole experience is that we don't get the support to be as big as we want to be. And I know that I have personally tried really hard to shrink myself in order to be with partners who I thought that I should be with or who I just wanted to be with so bad. And if I could just be quiet enough or complacent enough or what's that shit that y'all are obsessed with, submissive enough to this man, that it would make him choose me, it would make him want me, it would make him stay with me. And that breeds resentment. When you compromise huge parts of yourself, it breeds resentment. And she tells Uncle George, you know, you helped me to shrink. And his first response is to be defensive, but then he realizes, yeah, I did, because it made my life easier. You know, she wanted to go exploring with him, and because he wanted to protect her, once again, this theme of control as a means to protect, but then you actually end up kind of taking away huge parts from that person's experience in their existence. Even though you mean well, look at what you did to this person who you love. You took away her ability to be the explorer that she was meant to be. So then she deems herself to be an explorer and brings Uncle George along with her while she kind of leads this fantastical space age exploration. And bad bitch Beyonce comes and says, you know, do you want to go back to Earth, or do you want us to integrate you into this society? And she's like, how can I go back to being so small when this person is so big? How can I make myself small enough to exist in that place? And I can tell you, going back to the metaphor about therapy, once you get to a certain place of awareness, or a certain place of where you've expanded your knowledge, or you know what you want out of life, and you've discovered this is who I actually am and this is what I actually want to do, it's hard to go back to familiar places, because those people are sometimes only comfortable with a very small version of you, and you don't want to be that anymore. So I thought that the way they communicated that was just brilliant. I'm in love with this episode, but I do have to admit that, you know, she says that Dee needs me. She does. Your daughter doesn't have another parent. And I know that all of our faves are problematic. All of our favorite characters are problematic because people in real life are problematic, and it's real. But I don't want her to abandon Dee. And we see that Tit comes back through the portal holding a Lovecraft Country book with George Freeman, Uncle George, as the author. And I'm like, ooh, what do that mean? But Aunt Hippolyta doesn't come back through. So is she staying there? Like, I'm all for your self-exploration, but child, don't abandon this child. She ain't got nobody. And especially because they left evidence of her at the scene of the crime, they left her comic book that she drew under this officer's dead body. So I'm like, girl, you got to come back here and save your child. Use whatever fantastical knowledge you gain or skills or whatever to go back and save your child. Like, what is about to happen to her? I'm terrified. Oh, the other thing too, the black motorcyclist that the woman who rode up beside her, at first I thought she was hallucinating herself, but that was actually supposed to be a woman named Bessie Stringfield, who was this African-American woman who drove her motorcycle cross country by herself in the Jim Crow era. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. I did not know anything about that, and I was just like, whoa. So I'm gonna read up on that as well. I'm gonna put whatever link I use to read up on her, as well as the Dahomey Warriors, in this episode description. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Drop down the comments, let me know if I forgot anything, if there was anything you wanted me to discuss that I forgot. This is going a bit long, so like, comment, share, subscribe. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for joining me. Bye.